Okay, this is the last identity example. Now for this one, you can definitely tell the left side is much more difficult than the right side, so we're definitely going to work here with the left side. Let's get it written down here for you. Okay, so let's grab the left side. Now I'm going to pull a trick here, and here's what it is. I'm going to multiply the top and bottom of the left by the conjugate, kind of the bottom. So here's what I've got. I'm going to group these two things together. So I'm going to go like this. And I can do this. There's nothing wrong with doing this because addition here is commutative. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Now I'm going to multiply top and bottom by this. So watch this. So it's just like I multiplied by 1. Okay, what's that going to get me? Well, on the bottom, I'm just going to get this first thing multiplied by this first thing. The middle terms are going to drop out. I'm going to get the last two things multiplied together. So on the bottom, I'm going to get the following here. I'm going to get sine of gamma plus the cosine of it. That thing is going to be squared minus 1 squared, or 1. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm foiling out this mess down here at the bottom. On the top, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get these two things on the top multiplied together. Okay, now what's that going to look like? So let's just do the first part of the foiling. So I'm going to do this with a different color here. I'm going to do this piece times this piece. But notice that those themselves are different. So that's going to be sine squared plus sine cosine minus sine cosine times, minus cosine squared. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to end up with the following. Okay, that's when the first two things get multiplied together. Then I've got a plus 1 and a plus 1 multiplied together, so the last two terms will give me plus 1. And then I've got the middle terms multiplied together. Now I'm going to run out of room here, so I'm going to rewrite it down here. So this is going to be sine squared gamma minus cosine squared gamma plus 1, so that's the first and the last terms multiplied together. Now the inner terms multiplied together are going to be 1 times this mess, so it's going to be plus sine plus cosine, and then 1 times this mess over here, so plus another sine, but minus a cosine. And that whole thing is going to be over sine gamma plus cosine gamma squared minus 1. So let's look here now. On the top, we got some things that cancel out. I've got this cosine and this right here. Okay. I also have a 1 here. Okay. And I've got this cosine squared. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to, remember, I'm trying to get this thing over here. So here's how I'm going to do that. On the top, I've got a 1 and then minus cosine squared. And if you remember, cosine squared plus sine squared is equal to 1. So that means that sine squared is equal to 1 minus cosine squared. So I'm going to drop out the 1 minus the cosine squared. This is 1 minus cosine squared if I rearrange the terms. So I would end up getting the following. So sine squared gamma plus another sine squared gamma plus, so I got two of those, plus 2 sine gammas. And then on the bottom, I've got sine gamma plus cosine gamma. That thing squared minus 1. So on the top, what I've really got is 2 times the quantity. Actually, let's factor out what we can up top here. So on the top, what I've got is 2 sine squared gamma plus 2 sine gamma all over sine gamma plus cosine gamma squared minus 1. So let's see here. What have we got? Well, on the top, I've got 2 sine gamma times. Actually, let's get some more room here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that'll let me scroll down a little bit here. Okay, so again, just let's look at our goal. Our goal is to get sine gamma plus 1 over cosine. So that's what we're trying to get up here. Okay, now what we can do is we can FOIL at the bottom and see what we get. And sometimes you end up running yourself in a circle and having to start over, and that might happen here. Okay, because this is my first time working through this problem, just like it's your first time seeing it. So I would try to normally just square this bottom here. So what would I get? I would get sine squared gamma plus 2 sine gamma cosine gamma plus cosine squared gamma minus 1. So basically what I did was I FOILed this thing out right here. But if you look here, I've got a sine squared and a cosine squared, so that's equal to 1. And then I'm subtracting off 1, so those are going to disappear. So what have I got? Well, on the top, guys, I can factor out a 2 sine gamma, and I'm left with sine gamma plus 1. And on the bottom, I've got 2 sine gamma times cosine gamma. And notice that there's all multiplication now, so I can cancel this with this, and I've got my answer. So if you just stick with it, sometimes you get the right answer, and sometimes you don't get it to work out. Okay? But be persistent with it. If you don't get it to work out the first time, now if you look at all that we did there, that's a lot of work. Okay? When I started out, I didn't know where I was going. I just knew a couple tricks that I've seen before, tried working with those, and making sure that I could get this down to simplify to what I wanted it to. Okay, so you keep playing around with it, just be persistent. Now, is there a faster way to do this one? Very possibly, and one of you might find it. Okay, does it matter how fast you do it? No. Okay, if you can find the faster way, great. That makes life easier on you. But just keep working and being persistent with these problems.